Hey everyone, Kapi Tano here. Welcome to episode 1. Oh, no, shit. Welcome to numero uno of the For Production podcast. And for those who don't get Spanish, that's episode uno. Today, we're going to be talking about music. Music is very important to all three of us and everyone in the world, maybe. So today, we're going to spend some time going over some of our favorite albums from Picasso to Radiohead.
Did I just hear a sound effect?
Yeah.
The fucking Anthony Fantano sound effect.
So we're gonna go in order. We're gonna go Kapi, Neku, Jem. That's not the order on the screen, but hey, that's fine.
It's because I'm having brain issues, but I thought I'd also address that if you're hearing echoes and you're also wondering why it's called the Poor Production Podcast, where us three aren't good at this. This isn't our forte. So if it sounds like shit, it's just a joke. Just take it as a joke.
Yeah,
I could learn to be good with it.
It's all part of the plan.
I could learn to be good with the recording software. However, I only have like 1 hour of experience under my belt. And Powie was teaching me really, really complex things.
But don't blame Powie. That's rude.
No. I'm not blaming Powie. I'm blaming my lack of a big brain to understand the intricacies.
Getting this far is honestly pretty good.
Should we go and talk about our albums?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go first. So right now, the first album that I am going to talk about is In Rainbows by Radiohead.
Yes, great.
It is a fantastic album. It was released in 2007 on the XL record label. It is the 7th studio album by Radiohead, and it's their first one released sort of independently. Well, actually not. It was on the XL recording label. But when the album came out, it was really, there was some, I wouldn't say controversy, but there's some talk going around it because it was one of the first albums that had the sort of pay what you want download kind of tactic. Because they hosted it on a website, and you could literally pay nothing and download the album for free. And it didn't release in retail until like a month or two later. So people were either really supportive of this or really skeptical and afraid of this and what it meant for like indie bands. When like a big name act was giving away their music for free. But the reason why I picked this album as opposed to some of their other albums is this is my favorite because Radiohead's really good at making sort of electronic alt rock stuff. It's pretty I don't want to say pretentious because it's not. Well, maybe, depending on who you ask. This album is really, whenever I hear this album, I think of like colorful, I think of like fun and like exciting.
Hence, In Rainbows.
Exactly, yeah. So like the opening track, 15 Steps, really upbeat, has this electronic beat going on, and then more and more layers of the band coming in. And then there's this little bridge that's like all echoey, kind of Radiohead style. Then it goes into Body Snatchers, a really heavy, hardcore. There's a little rhythm guitar, and it's really crunchy, full of texture. And the band, but it's really textured, colorful album. And I think they knew this, which is why they called it Rainbows or whatever.
Yeah.
You have some of their most well-known tracks, House of Cards, Jigsaw Falling to Pieces, Body Snatchers. I don't think there's any like dips in the album. I think it's just a constant barrage of like great song after great song, as opposed to even like OK Computer, which is considered like their best, if not of the best. I feel like toward the middle, toward the end, there's a few tracks that I usually skip, but on this album, like it's really just like bam, bam, and that's why I like it. It has that Radiohead sound, which I'm a big. And it's just a constant barrage of like really good stuff. So that's why I picked for one of them.
Yay!
Very
well,
nice.
I am a casual Radiohead fan, I would call myself. And I feel like, isn't In Rainbows like the fan favorite, but OK Computer is like the mainstream favorite?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I like what you said about crunchy and textured. That's like a good way to describe music, I think. And definitely that album.
Oh yeah.
Do you have a favorite song on the album?
I really like Weird Fishes.
Mm-hmm.
Arpeggios. The one in the center of the speaker, then one goes to the left, one goes to the right, like panned, and it all like blends together into this really like it's gonna sound fucking weird now that I think about it. Like this like creamy like sound.
That's not weird. I get it.
Yeah, and then the bass comes in or like the drums or whatever. I don't know. It's all kinds of crazy.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like I don't know about you guys, but when I look for a good album, I really look for high quality production. And hearing the different sounds and different speakers is like such a good thing for me.
Now, to me, what I find that I typically tend to care about most when listening to music is actually the beat and the rhythm. I find myself getting lost in the beat and the rhythm of a song more often. Because of that, I can listen to an album like hundreds of times and still not know the lyrics to the very first song because I just get lost in the rhythm.
Wow, you could never go to a concert in your life.
Man, I've been to concerts and like, it's kind of nice to just jam out a little bit.
Yeah, no, I was just teasing. But it kind of depends on the artist. But like a lot of times at shows, you'll see people like singing their heart out, and when you don't know the words, it's like I find it really awkward because like if you're in the middle of like a pit or something, and everyone's screaming, and you're just there like, I really like this guitar riff. Everyone's like, what the fuck?
Or I'm in the middle of a mosh pit, beating people left and right, just beating people to the beat of the song,
Just bodies slamming.
Yeah, man.
I will tell my one interesting mosh pit story when we get up to one of my albums because it has to do with violence.
All right, understandable.
Kapi, my next question for you is, if someone wanted to check out the album but they weren't like really sure about it and they needed to be convinced, what song do you think they should listen to?
15 Step or Weird Fishes.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they like sum up the album like neatly?
I think so. Yeah. They're kind of some of the more. Well, actually, I think the whole album's pretty easily accessible.
Mm-hmm.
The opening track is good because it's the opening track, and they put it there to like kind of get you into the album, and also because Weird Fishes is my favorite track.
Yes.
I feel like it's kind of an easy listen.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think like I don't think In Rainbows is inaccessible, but like I guess for the average music listener, going from OK Computer to In Rainbows could be considered a jump to some, I think.
Radiohead for me is one of those bands that like I enjoy their singles a lot, but I've never actually sat down and listened to one of their albums like start to finish, which is a real shame because back when I got my record player, my friend who sold me the record player gave me 3 Radiohead albums for free, and I've been meaning to listen.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, right. I think it was OK Computer, Allier, and there was another one in there, but I'm pulling a blank on it.
I'm sure Kapi can name it for you.
Wait, maybe it's not Allier. Isn't Allier that fucking YouTuber?
No idea. I think you sent me a snapshot of it. I'm pretty sure it was Kid A, OK Computer, and the band.
Kid A, that's Kid what it was.
Allier. Allier.
I feel bad.
It's my favorite Radiohead album, Allier.
But yeah, I'll have to listen to some of these albums all the way through. Like, I don't know why I haven't. I've always had it. I've had it for a long time now. I just never got around to it.
Lazy. This is Kapi's message to you that you have to do it now.
You know what? I won't do it right now because we're doing a podcast. But after the podcast and after I wake back up from my eternal slumber, then yes, I definitely will.
So as my final message about the album, I'm gonna be rating my albums out of 5 knee slap. So I'll get a rating of 4 knee slaps out of 5.
Oh my god! I didn't even think about coming up with a rating system. I'll have to do it whilst Neku talks about his album.
All right. Well, while I talk about my album, I'm also gonna have to come up with a rating system. So let's go. My first album is my first album is Weezer by Weezer, particularly the very first Weezer by Weezer, which was the Blue album.
Neku, we call that in the business the self-titled album.
The self-titular album, of course. I just like saying Weezer a lot. But so the very first album, the Blue album, was released in May of 1994 by DGC Records. It was recorded in Electric Lady Studios over in New York City. And for the very first outing for this group, I think that it is quite possibly one of the best albums. I think every single song on here is an absolute, if not a banger, then a well-written song. I feel like for a song to be a banger, it has to be something you can go hard to. And some of these songs you can't really go hard to, but they are still an amazing listen. Opening up with the amazing track, My Name is Jonas. I feel like it gives a very, very strong indication if like anybody wants to start listening to Weezer and they want to start at the very beginning. I feel like My Name is Jonas is almost the idea that they wanted everybody who would listen to them to think that this is what they are, like particularly their sound. And it is one of the strongest songs on the album. I'll easily argue. However, that isn't to try to detract from all the other songs. Like I said, this album is absolutely wonderful with all of its songs.
It's a neat album. I do actually quite like Weezer. I think they're above all a real good fun time. They are,
and there's always like that questionable era of their time, like post Pinkerton, where there
was god, what was that?
What was what?
Go.
Okay, so it was Kapi.
Well, no, it wasn't me, but like, all right, it happened.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't me. We gotta go.
Okay.
What was I saying? Weezer.
After Pinkerton.
Yeah, after Pinkerton, there was like kind of a low era of Weezer's, I guess, discography, where they kind of didn't really know what they wanted to sound like, and because of that, they kind of just kept the very same sound across every album that they released. And thankfully, this was remedied by, personally, I feel like this was remedied by the White album that was released in 2015. However, I still feel like, despite their very, very slow evolution, their starting point of the Blue album is easily their best outing that they've ever done.
That's a bold claim.
You know what? And it's one that I'm sticking by. It is my hot take, and I am sticking with it.
A burning hot take.
I mean, when you have a track list that consists of My Name is Jonas, Buddy Holly, Undone the Sweater Song, Surf Wax America, Say It Ain't So, Only in Dreams, In the Garage, and Holiday, like, those are all wonderful songs. Like, it is one of the best 41.5 minutes you will spend listening to music, I argue.
And no excuse not to listen to it, because that's a damn short album.
Yeah. It's still made in the time when vinyls were really big, so 40 minutes was like the typical standard. So yes, you have no justification to say that you won't listen to it. It's
Yes.
super short. It's like half the length of a movie.
And it's not like a super thinky one either. It's like very like, I'm just going to chill out and listen to Weezer.
Yeah, like it's not one that like the lyrical content in it, while like it definitely is there and it does exist, some people will argue that the lyrics don't really make a lot of sense. Case in point, My Name is Jonas. People, 24 years later, still don't fully know what the hell is going on in that song or what the like hidden meaning of it is. And you know what? That's totally fine because it's still an enjoyable it's still an enjoyable song to listen to. Because of like the rhythm of it, like the very beginning intro on the guitar, like the very very soft singular strumming before it goes into full rock. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think Weezer's a good time. I think there's some really catchy riffs on that album. Buddy Holly is like a classic song that I used to love when I was growing up. I really, really liked it. I think Weezer's great.
Yeah. I remember listening to the Sweater song a lot, like in high school, when me and my friends would just drive around and dick around and just have fun. We would always sing along with it. Like it is just such a memorable song, and I feel like it's probably one of the highlights of the album.
Yeah. So my question is for you. So it's pretty obvious what your favorite song off the album is.
Believe it or not, I've been misleading you this whole time. My favorite song is Surf Wax America.
Wow.
I will actually stick by it and say that My Name is Jonas is probably one of the best feat to like step forward with as a band that any band has done. Like it is just a very very good starting point for them. And while it is still a wonderful song, my favorite is still Surf Wax America.
Yeah. No, I get having like a best and a favorite. I totally vibe with that. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing, right? Like, we're showing a most accessible or like an interesting song to listen to versus like what your personal favorite is.
Yeah.
So, I don't know why Kapi muted. I assume it's for good reason. But I will go on to not the album I was originally going to talk about first because Kapi is muted, and I know that it's one that we actually fought over in PMs to like be able to talk about because they're an absolutely fantastic band. But I will skip on to a different album.
Real quick, I still need to give my rating for Blue album.
Oh, true. Sorry. Yep, give me your rating and your rating scale.
I'm going to do it on a scale of 8.
Okay.
I rate it 8 chicken strips out of 8. Because, you know, when you get an 8-piece chicken strip meal, that's pretty damn good.
That is pretty good.
Pretty good quality, and typically, like, it's pretty decent price. So you're getting your value. So I say, 8 out of 8 chicken strips is a damn good value if you ever want to listen to it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just reading chat. I've had this conversation with Kite multiple times, the best versus favorite thing. I don't know, I think it's like something I acquired from listening to an absolute shit ton of music, and maybe it has to do with like critic consensus, like what's like a good, like a well-made and very well constructed and like pushing the boundary song versus like one that just makes you smile. Also, Kapi's back, so I'm not going to change what I was talking about. Are you here, bud?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, awesome.
Oh wait, sorry. No, I'll let you go.
No, you go, and then I'll start.
All right. So, like, with the whole like best versus favorite thing, like, I feel like for me the very like the biggest like I guess example of that for me, and I know this is music and this is stepping outside the realm of music, but for games, Pokemon, when I think of like best versus favorite, arguably the best is Gen 2, arguably, like, but my favorite is Gen 3.
Ooh, Gen 3. Gen 3 squad.
Like, I absolutely love Gen 3, however, I will definitely concede that Gen 2 is easily the better gen.
Okay. Am I able to go nerd out about my boy?
Yes.
Our boy.
Okay, everyone, welcome to the best album of 2015, in my opinion, Currents by Tame Impala. Currents is one of my favorite albums in the whole wide world. It's probably like number 2. On a good day, it's probably number 1. There are so many wonderful things about Currents, and I'm going to get to it in all like little like chunks because it's an interesting album. So the first thing I want to say is that the man who created this album, Kevin Parker, he's not necessarily like, oh, like what a beautiful musician. He's like a producer. So yeah, he plays his instruments, but he produced the entire thing and I believe mixed it as well, or a decent portion. He also does the singing on the albums and a lot of the recordings. And talking about good production, earlier, good production is like the peak of Tame Impala to me, but particularly this album. So Currents is actually a concept record, which is something that is quite rare now. It's basically just like you run with a story and it's not necessarily something true that's happened to you, but you emphasize certain details if it did to make it into like a whole like story. It's like a movie in like an album form. So the real beauty with this album is that it's like a psychedelic rock kind of thing, and it's really hard to pinpoint like what year this album would have come out in if you didn't know about Tame Impala or if you didn't know like about how they recorded it or whatever. In terms of specific songs to shout out, I think Let It Happen, which is the title track and comes in at a whopping, I think, 7 minutes and 40-something seconds. It's a big boy, and especially for a first song, that's quite daunting. To me, that's personally the best track on the album. Tame Impala is very good at building musical riffs, and they often overlap each other and come to, like, a point. It's kind of like electronic music, but not really, but with more, like, traditional elements, I guess. So Let It Happen is a very long build with some like just beautiful background music and then the gorgeous vocals, and it's just like a fun dance track. But I think if you want to get into Tame Impala, you should absolutely listen to The Less I Know, The Better, which is the main single from Currents. I think it really sums up the album, and the bass line, it is so good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Go, Kapi. Talk away.
All right, Kapi. I'll discuss this with you then, even though I haven't listened to it. Kapi, you there?
You can just go.
Oh no! Go for it, Kapi. I have literally no information.
Okay,
about
so the reason I discovered Tame Impala was my brother. He's super into them. He's super into like alt rock and kind of indie vibe, and he usually, and this is probably gonna sound really bad on my part, when my brother, and I guess it's sort of in general, when people show me new music and they're like, "Sit down, I want you to listen to this," I'm like, "No, I'm okay." So I was like, okay, this is whatever. But then, on my own time, I discovered this, and I was like, well, this is if Jesus came back, this would do it.
Seriously?
Yeah, like he showed me Tame Impala, and he showed me Viceroy by Mac DeMarco, and I was like, this is kind of bad. And then I found it on my own. I was like, oh, okay, this.
Interesting.
So I do agree with the Gem that "Let It Happen" is a really good track. For the opener, it really puts in the vibe of the kind of different instrumentals that Kevin Parker is going to compared to his earlier albums, more like kind of techno, kind of disco kind of vibe going on. Some of my favorite tracks are the Moment, and Cause I'm a Man. The kind of shorter tracks around like the 4-minute point for a little bit more if you're not really into super long. I feel like some of the best ideas probably come from the like minute long track.
Mm.
The Disciples and Names are really good kind of beats, but they're like a minute long. Which, you know, I'm only a little bit bitter about it.
And Gossip, which is a fantastic interval.
Yeah. Steaming hot take fresh off the stove. I think the less I know, the better is a little overrated, but
See, I thought it was overrated, and then like I got out of my ass and I re-listened to it, and I was like, "Oh, it's the best one."
Oh wow!
No, I'm saying like you have to listen to it without thinking about people's opinions, and then I think it's the best constructed.
No, Polly, I think you just need to pull your head out of your ass when you listen to it from now on, boy.
Oh god.
I'm sorry.
No. It's fine. Maybe I'll have to go back and listen to that one. But yeah, I really enjoy the fact that Kevin Parker writes, records, mixes, produces pretty much all of his albums. I think sometimes he has an additional musician come in to play something sometimes.
Mm-hmm. But he would have wrote it himself.
Yeah, and I think with this album, it really skyrocketed him into like, I wouldn't say like the super mainstream, but he's went on to produce songs with like a lot of other contemporary, like mainstream artists. He's produced some of their stuff. I think Kesha did a cover of one of the songs on the album.
Yes, and there was an Arctic Monkeys cover as well.
Sure. So he's definitely pretty well known, especially nowadays when like music like this is more easily accessible and talked about. As where like back then, if some really cool indie person was coming out in like the 70s, you probably never heard about him. So yeah, I really like this album. I agree with a lot of the points that Jen made.
Yeah, it's just like
that's what I think about
it. It's like listening to Currents is like getting into like your bed like straight after like a nice warm bath and just being like, oh, like it like feels like nice on your ears. It's gorgeous. It's really groovy. I think the lyrics are great. I think Past Life is slightly too on the nose for me just because of the voice recordings. But apart from that, like I think it's a stellar album, and I started listening to it the year after in 2016, and it was really weird because whenever I was listening to it, like, you know, when you really get into an album and like every time you listen to it, a different song stands out to you. When I was listening to it, whatever song was standing out was like whatever was happening in my life. And so it was a very like, it like felt like I was living the album. It was strange, but in a good way. Like if I had to tell someone like, oh, this is my life, like in music, I would just like play them Currents. I'd be like, this is what my life was like in that year.
Yeah, for sure.
My rating system is yellow flannel shirts. And I'm gonna give it 9.5 yellow flannel shirts.
You know what? I can get down with that rating system.
It's for my boy. Okay, Kapi.
Oh, did Neku want to say anything?
Oh, sure.
Wait, what?
Did you want to say anything about that? You were kind of gonna.
No, I don't really think there's much for me to say. Like it. Huh?
No, go.
I just don't have like I haven't listened to the album yet, so like I can't really say much on it. But like, you know,
that's okay.
Like that's one reason why I like this, because it you know, it gives more opportunities to learn about music. So like,
well, I know your music taste. I think you would like this.
And that's one thing that like I've always seen it pop up like in a lot of different ways, like either looking through Spotify or other like music related apps, and I see it pop up, and like I'm always tempted to give it a listen, but I'm always like, yeah, but I want to listen to this right now instead, and because of that, I never did give it a chance.
I think that's totally fair. Also, people who want to listen to this, it is a long album, unfortunately. I think it's definitely worth it, and you can do it in chunks. But it is a long boy, unfortunately, if you like shorter albums.
Long boy?
Kapi, would you like to talk about your number 2?
I definitely would. So my number 2 is the 7th studio album by famed singer, songwriter, best-selling artist of all time, Mr. Michael Jackson. The album is Bad, released in 1987 on Epic Records. While it's his 7th album as a total, starting from when he was a kid, those albums don't matter. It was his 3rd record on the Epic Records label, the first being Off the Wall, second being Thriller. Bad. It was produced by the absolute legend, Quincy Jones. While Thriller is definitely more iconic, I would say, I think Bad is a better structured piece as a whole, and I like it better for that. Some of the super big singles on the album, Bad, The Way You Make Me Feel, Another Part of Me, Smooth Criminal, classic. He wrote most of the songs on the album. There's only 3 or 4 guest writers in it, which I know doesn't really matter, but so the reason I like this album, the reason I like it more than Thriller, is because there's more of like it's more like compact and like concise. So it starts with Bad, titular song, the title track, which is definitely, I think it's a little more hard compared to most of Michael Jackson's songs, but it's an 80s song, so it's probably accessible to pretty much anybody nowadays. It's a pretty short listen, about an average length for an album. It's about 10 tracks, 5 on each side. And Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson, definitely perfected the sounds that had already come through with the 80s, and they perfected them. And really, I feel like in a way, this album has provided inspiration to many like musicians nowadays, maybe even more than Thriller, sure. But really, if you're going to talk about Thriller, you can't leave out Bad. Bad was a really big change for Michael Jackson. You know, ever since then, with Off the Wall and Thriller, as he was a kid, he was kind of known as like a goody boy. And then Bad comes out, and he's like wearing this like black leather vest. He's like has his hair in like a little mullet, but he pulls it off because he's Michael Jackson, and he's all cool. He's all like, he's bad, pretty much. So that's why I like the album. It's a really good listen. It's not super deep or complex or anything like that. There's just some really neatly written songs. They're pretty foot stomping. Out of 5 knee slaps, I think a little bit of a bias. It's probably maybe one of my favorite artists, but I'm gonna have to go 4.5 out of 5 knee slaps.
Wow. So I would like to say 2 things about the album and just Michael Jackson in general. The first thing that I'll say is when you're listing off tracks, literally I like heard all of them in my head, like as you said them to me, which is like, I think a really neat thing about Michael Jackson is that like 95% of his songs are so catchy that you just need to read the title and you're like, oh, I know the chorus. Like I'm in it to win it. I've got it now. Which I think is nice. Like pop music is for everyone. And I think Bad is fun in like a different way than like pop was before that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that I know a lot of 80s artists did this, but it's kind of rare now, is that like, yes, you would have like your songs, but like your look would be part of it. Like your look was part of your music artistry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. With the kind of rougher, more kind of sort of like, bad kind of look. It also goes into the way the music's written and the way it sounds, the production. Bad is a really upbeat, kind of heavy, at least song. Smooth Criminal is a pretty heavy song. And you got the ballad, I Just Can't Stop Loving You, Man in the Mirror. And you got sort of really just peppy songs like Just Good Friends with the boy. But definitely in general, definitely his look. I feel like he shaped the look around the music, but the look definitely is iconic, and it definitely goes with the album.
For absolutely sure. I think it's like an important piece of the modern music puzzle is Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Definitely, Bad is obviously his most popular album, and I definitely do have to agree with Jem. Like, as you were listing off tracks, they were also playing through my head, and I feel like this is also like, well, it's just one of those albums where every single track is just as good as the last one, and always keeps the bar consistently high.
Oh no, he cut out.
Oh no.
That's okay. He was consistently what, Neku?
Huh?
What was he consistently?
Oh no, like the tracks were consistently good, and they were always setting the bar like relatively high, and they always kept that standard of quality.
Yeah, I full agree with that.
People like to get into little wars about who is better, Michael Jackson or Prince. I'm not super into Prince, so I'm biased. I'm definitely a Michael guy, but you can believe whatever. But
I'm a David Bowie girl.
Oh yeah, David Bowie all day, every day for me. I'm sorry.
But I do. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I do like Michael Jackson, and it was like a Bad. Particularly was like an album my dad used to put on all the time when we were little kids.
Yeah, it was a really good album.
Okay, so you rated that 4.5 knee slap out of 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we move on to Neku's next album?
We sure can. My second album is the self-titular album from Boston, their very first debut album. Produced by Tom Scholz and Jordan Boylan. It was released in 1976, so this is another one of those older records, following the trend of Michael Jackson's Bad. And I chose this one because if there was like a rock album that I had to pick to listen every day for the rest of my life, like from this era, I would easily pick this album because every single song on it is an absolute banger. I will rock out so much to these songs. I have this on vinyl, and usually with vinyl records, like there's one side that always has like the better tracks, and typically the A side. However, this one, I feel like the B side has so many just outstanding bangers compared to side A. Like, don't get me wrong, side A has More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, and Foreplay a Long Time, which are absolute legends. But on side 2, you have Rock and Roll Band, you have Smokin', you have Hitch a Ride, you have Something About You, and Let Me Take You Home Tonight. All of these songs just culminate into quite possibly one of the best classic rock experiences that you can get for an album. I cannot sing the praises of this album highly enough. I absolutely love this album, and I think it is a must listen to for anybody who considers themselves a fan of rock. If they have not listened to it already, they need to listen to it.
Another bold claim from Neku.
Hey, when you said to pick out albums, I was like, I'm picking out some of my favorite albums that I will listen to.
So my question for you, also you're echoing.
Oh no.
is that what's your favorite track, and what's the track that you would show someone if they weren't sure about whether they wanted to listen to the album or not?
If I think probably More Than a Feeling, it would be the one that I would show someone if they were like hesitant to listen to this album.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite is Foreplay a Long Time. Like, similar to Bohemian Rhapsody, this is just a long power ballad that is epic in length, nearly 8 minutes long. And every single section of it has its own distinct sound and feel, and you can feel the progression of the song as it slowly goes along its runtime. It is just an absolute standout song. The vocals on it are absolutely amazing. The rhythm on it, like I said, is always changing, and because of that, it keeps my attention span going for all 8 minutes because it isn't the same sound.
Yeah, for sure. I totally get that.
Yeah.
Do you think it improved the music scene? Do you think it's had like a lasting impact on the genre?
I honestly think it has, and I'm honestly not the only one to think that. In a quote from Don Daly in the I think it's a book of Boston's More Than a Feeling, they said, quote, combining some of the ebullience of the rock era's early days with the precision and technology that would mark rock record productions from then on. Like, that is really high praise. Like, this set a bar for many other bands to have to try to follow up with. And I feel that because of that, it has a long staying power that can continue to be appreciated all these years later. And the 100th listen, the 1000th listen through on this album is just as fresh and just as enjoyable as the first.
And that's exactly what you want in like one of the best albums ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this is actually like top 10 on Rolling Stone's like top 200 albums of all time.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
Like,
do you know what was number one? Was it like Nevermind by Nirvana, probably?
I actually think it was.
No, it was Sgt. Pepper's, probably.
Yeah, Sgt.
Oh,
Pepper's.
wow.
Yeah, it was exactly Sgt. Pepper's. Oh, actually, let me see. I will.
While you're looking, Neku, do you want to give it your what was your rating system again? Chicken strips?
Yeah.
Out of 8?
Yeah. So this is another one that I'm going to be giving 8 chicken strips out of 8. Like, this is one that, like, the value that you get while listening to it is absolutely outstanding. You will get absolute anthems every single track. It is one that I feel like every single song, similar to Michael Jackson's Bad, sets a bar that is so very consistent that you just can't help but enjoy every single minute as you go through.
That's good. I'm happy to hear that. So, would you like me to talk about my second one now?
Go for it. I am currently pulling up the Rolling Stone top 500 albums of all time. So you
awesome.
Go for it.
So, I am going to deviate from the genres we've been talking about thus far to what I'm not sure what to call other than experimental industrial rap. Who knows? I am talking about Death Grips, one of the most creative artists to come out of the 2000s, the 2010s. Specifically, their second album, The Money Store, which I believe is their third project because they had an EP before the first album, and the album's technically a mixtape, but that's fine. The Money Store is possibly the most perfect album to ever exist if you like the genre. I think Death Grips has a problem now, maybe not so much back in the Money Store days, which is 2012, with being accessible. They are so inaccessible now. I think you really have to dive in through the old stuff to get to the newer stuff. If you're not like super into the music scene, at least like that's how I feel. But The Money Store to me is the most accessible. It is the best album they've ever put out. The production, boy, if you like rap and anything EDM or electronic in your life, it is so crisp. It's perfect. Everything is beautiful. The vocals are impeccable. If you like drum solos, holy shit, why aren't you listening to Death Grips? One of the best drummers of like the century. Like Death Grips production is fantastic. They are all absolute bangers, and some really interesting music inventions, I guess. It's just a fucking weird album. It's very experimental. Experimental is my favorite genre of anything. Experimental and then tag another thing on the end. I think Death Grips are bloody fan. And I really liked Death Grips, and then I saw them live, and then I like fell in love with them because it just all came together like even more when I saw them, which was an experience. I'm going to give my favorite track on the album. I'm going to give to System Blower, which is a weird song, and the instrumental is created by a sample of a Canadian train just like starting up. And then they take that and then they cut it and loop it a bunch of times, as well as having like actual sound effects and like drumming and stuff, as well as the vocals, which I feel like is something I have to quite emphasize, is that if you are going to listen to Death Grips, beware of vocals. If you're someone who doesn't like screamo, you might not like Death Grips. They're a little bit like death metal screamo vocals with a rap kind of feel, but with EDM under it. It's a very strange mix. It definitely works. But if you're not prepared for that, you should definitely listen to the first track on the album, which is Get Got, which has no screaming whatsoever. Get Got is really fast, but it's very like one tone, and the instrumentals really shine, and so do the drums. It's a very chill song, and I think it's one of the better songs if you're interested in the flow of rap. Yes, that is what I think about the Money Store. I think it's amazing.
Honestly, I have to totally agree with you. Money Store is easily Death Grips like one of their best albums. And God, yeah, easily my favorite has got to be Hustle Bones. Like,
oh, classic, really good.
Hustle Bones is just absolutely amazing. But yeah, I definitely agree. Get Got is a strong starting song for the album that, while it doesn't necessarily give a really good, I guess, view into what to expect from Death Grips, especially concerning the vocals, I still think that it's one of their most interesting tracks that they've put out.
It's really good. I think the only other one that I would suggest for getting into Death Grips would be I've Seen Footage, because that was a really big single, and I think the lyrical content is really interesting and something I've not heard about in a song before, which is something I like about Death Grips, is that their lyrics are pretty disgusting and provocative a lot of the time. But the Money Store, not so much. It was more about how like technology is changing our lives, and I've Seen Footage is like about being desensitized to seeing terrible things on the news and on the internet because you see terrible shit online constantly. That's why it's called I've Seen Footage. And I think it's a really interesting, like, I think it's something really interesting to write a song about. And that's how I feel about all of the Money Store, barring like a couple really, really strange lines in Hacker about like getting all of the coconuts, and there's no meaning. It's just nonsense to go to the beat. Like,
yeah,
some of Death Grip's lines are just to go with the beat. It doesn't necessarily have to mean something. But I've Seen is a good entry point, I think, if you're interested in the more loud Death Grip songs. But if you're interested in just hearing the instrumentals, definitely look at Get Got. I am going to give the Money Store 9.8 finals out of 10. I think it's almost perfect. I have a little bit of a problem with Punk Weight. No, not Punk Weight. No, I have a little bit of a problem with Fuck That. That's the only song that I'm like a little bit iffy on. The rest of them are like absolute perfect tier song. Doesn't mean Fuck That's bad. I just don't think it's a 10, and all the other songs are clear 10s.
Yeah, for sure. Death Grips is definitely one of the groups that I've been meaning to listen to. Usually, because if I hear about it, it's either like, if you don't like screamo, don't listen to it. Super big on that. It's either like it, it's like it's really accessible for a certain perspective. I feel like I'm pretty open minded, so if I really just give it a listen, I'm sure I would think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely one on the to put on the list. But yeah, I definitely hear about them a lot. They're definitely one of the big acts that people really like and talk about.
Yeah, I mean, they're interesting because death groups get memed super hard, and they always have. And like, death groups will like forever be a meme, especially now because MC Ride is the Mothman guy. But like, like death groups memes are never going to end. But I feel like people might not take them seriously because of that. But I do genuinely think they're the most creative and most interesting artist out of the 2010s. Easy.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. I love recommending music to people, and Death Grips I feel like is one of the hardest groups to, I guess, recommend to people because while it's a very niche taste, it is also a taste that like is. I feel like if you listen to it and you start like listening to them, like you'll either will love them or hate them. But if you love them, you will absolutely love most of their projects.
Yeah, 100%. There's like a couple that I'm like a little iffy on. I think most of their albums are like at least an 8, and some are just a low 8, and then some are like 9.8. I think is their best one. Um, I'll say one more thing about Money Store, and then we'll move on to Kapi. Remember at the start of the episode we were talking about mosh pits?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw Death Grips live, and I am what we would call a concert and gig veteran. I've been to over 50. I've lost count at this point. I have a box completely full with tickets. I used to go all the fucking time. So I'm like an old man at concerts now because I've seen some shit, Like I'm the guy at the back, like crossing my arms, being like, "Fuck this," like liking the music, but I'm just so grumpy. And we were like in the pit, and usually when you're in the pit, you're supposed to keep like your limbs to yourself. Like you can mosh and stuff, but like probably don't punch people or like create a lot of space for yourself that like people are getting injured or are extremely uncomfortable just because of you. Um, and there was this girl, and she wasn't moshing. First of all, she wasn't even near the pit. She was like around a bunch of crowded people because the venue had all oversold tickets. Um, but she was like towards the back, not in the actual pit where there was actual dancing going. And she was just like swaying really fast back and forth in like a 2 meter radius, and like everyone was more squished because of her, and she wouldn't fucking stop. Like the photographer had to be like, "Hey, can you like stop doing that because we're trying to take photos of the band, and like you're taking up so much space and everyone is so cramped because of it." And she was, I think, maybe a little bit drunk and out of it, and she just would not fucking stop. So when a more rowdy Death Grip song came on, everyone pushed forward, and I may have pushed her over, and she may have place planted.
Oh no.
But you know what? She stopped swaying, and the photographer thanked me for my duties, and it was a great concert.
Feels great, man.
Doing God's work, Jem. Doing God's work.
Anyway, Kapi, you can go into your album now. Your last album.
Yeah. So to kind of keep in the ways of rap and hip hop, the album that I'm going to talk about last is definitely going to be Kendrick Lamar's third studio album, released on Interscope Records, To Pimp a Butterfly.
Yay!
So this is a concept album. I think most of Kendrick Lamar's projects are concept albums. To where Good Kid, Mad City was more of like a story in terms of the concepts and the lyrics. It told a story of either Kendrick as a child or many youths growing up in Compton, California. Whereas To Pimp a Butterfly is more of a concept in terms of its running themes and ideas. It's not really much as like a story. It has a lot of themes about Black culture, racial inequality, institutional racism, and some of the sounds that it incorporates are inspired by like G-funk of like the night. It also incorporates a lot of jazz, which is actually really nice. That's actually why I like it. The instrumentals, well, actually, it's not, but there's a lot of jazz in the album, a lot of jazz samples and like live jazz recordings on it, and it's definitely one of the nicer listens of hip hop. Like you have These Walls, which is a really nice electric piano kind of funky track. Then you have How Much a Dollar Costs, which has like a really good brass section. You Ain't Gotta Lie is like pure like funk. For Free, this little interlude track is pure jazz, improvisational jazz. Those are some of my favorite tracks. Another one of my favorite tracks is I. It was also, I think, the lead single. It's a really positive song, a positive message about like loving yourself. Mortal Man, a whopping 12-minute track on the album, really just brings it all in. Goes over the themes of the album, and it really brings together all the pieces spread out. It brings them all in and gives you the bigger picture. Answers a lot of your questions. Brings up a couple. Answers all your questions. Maybe leaves you hanging on a couple of them, but I feel like that's sort of the idea that you're supposed to interpret a couple of things yourself. It's definitely one of the best like conscious rap albums of all time. It's one of the best albums of all time, I would say, especially of the 2010s, 2015. Dan was cool, but not as good as Butterfly. So hopefully, Kendrick can do whatever he wants. He's my favorite rapper, but come on, man. So that's what I think about it. Definitely 5 out of 5 knee slaps. Actually, 5.5 out of 5 knee slaps. One.
Whoa.
5. Little half knee slap there. All right. That's what I think about it.
That's wild. But I full agree. I think it's incredible. And I love at the end of every song, the poem that he reads gets longer and longer till you reach the last track and he reads it out in full. I think that's so artistic and beautiful. I definitely agree with you. I is my favorite track by a mile. I think they're all fantastic, but I is such a jam. It's so fun.
Such a banger, as the kids say.
And I don't know. I feel like To Pimp a Butterfly really captures a moment in time of American political history.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like it only came out a few years ago, but I feel like it means more and more as time goes on.
Yeah, 100%. Especially All Right, the lyrics to the chorus being used as a chant at Black Lives Matter. I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably my second favorite Kendrick Lamar album, but easily his best one.
What's your favorite?
Section 80. I love Section 80.
I thought you were going to say Damn, and I was going to have to kill you.
No. Section 80 was my first, I guess, outing or was my first impression of Kendrick Lamar, and I absolutely loved it. However, I will say that To Pimp a Butterfly is arguably one of the best albums released in the past probably 30, 40 years. Objectively.
It's amazing.
It is absolutely amazing. And I specifically remember watching the Grammys when it was going up against fucking Taylor Swift's 1989. Which, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Taylor Swift's 1989 is an alright album. However, the fact that it snubbed To Pimp a Butterfly for best record. I was a slight bit mad at that. But I don't think that should take away from the objective beauty that is this album.
Stop saying objective. You're going to kill Kite from a heart attack. What I was going to say is I'm actually really fortunate that I got to see Kendrick Lamar whilst he was doing To Pimp a Butterfly tours. So I got to see the album live and it was incredible. But something I really want to like get across with Kendrick and what reminded me of that from the Grammys is that his live performances are godly, and the performance, like the theatrical performance he did for the Grammys, where he like had himself like in the chains and he had all the people behind him with like the cages, and then they do all this dancing and he like does the rap perfectly live, and then it cuts to the silhouette of Africa with Compton written in the middle. It was so beautiful. I can't believe he didn't win that year. I cannot believe that Damn won an album and To Pimp a Butterfly didn't.
I know.
That's okay.
Damn is good. But it's not good because To Pimp a Butterfly is literally perfect. I'm so... It's subjectively perfect to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's amazing. This is like one we are all like, yeah, it's so good. If you're listening to this and you've never heard To Pimp a Butterfly, do yourself a goddamn favor and listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, actually, one of my friends who doesn't really listen to rap music, who is slowly getting more and more into rap, like even he recognizes like the wonderfulness that is To Pimp a Butterfly.
Yes, that's good. Kapi, what were you gonna say?
Well, actually, two things. Because Neku, that reminded me so much of my brother. He never listened to rap, and he remembers being on Xbox Live, being a little shitter. And people were like, "Wow, this album," and he was like, "I don't fuck with rap." So I made him listen to the album, the whole album, and he was like, "Wow, that's pretty good." And I was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it?" So then, like, he lives with his girlfriend, but like sometimes he'll visit, and all of a sudden he'll be like, "Hey, have you heard the new Tyler the fucking Creator track?" And I'm like, "No, what the fuck?" And like he's so in it now, and I'm like, "Oh shit, what have I done? Created a monster."
That's good though, and that's like a good introductory, like really deep rap record, I think.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that I feel like Damn winning a Grammy was kind of like a, oh shit, Sam, we fucked up. Sorry about that. For To Pimp a Butter.
Maybe. I just like do not like Damn even a little. So pissed.
It's okay.
I don't know. It really didn't click with me, but that's fine. It's just not my style of rap.
I think for me, my favorite song from Damn was Duckworth, but yeah, a lot of the tracks on that one were either hit or miss, and for me, there was more hit than miss. However, there were still quite a few misses.
Don't worry, guys. We just have to play it backwards.
Oh no!
Buy the super special edition, guys. The tracks are out of order. But they mean something.
Did you give it knee slaps? You gave it a 5.5 out of 5. 5.5
out of 5, yeah.
Damn. Oh, wait, no, not that album.
Yeah. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to go to my final album recommendation.
Go for it.
So, funnily enough, Kapi in his anecdote mentioned Tyler the Creator, which is who my final artist is going to be. It's going to be his album Flower Boy, the fourth studio album.
So good.
Yes, released in July of 2017 by Columbia Records. And this album, boy. While I don't think it's as amazing as, say, To Pimp a Butterfly, I also, like, I will argue all day how good this album is. I feel like there's only like just one misstep in the tracks, and that's the very last one where there aren't any like lyrics to really speak of, which was Enjoy Right Now Today. However, I feel like every single other song outside of that is absolutely amazing in its own right. Like starting off with Forward, which is this reflection of Tyler the Creator and trying to like figure out like how much is enough, like will my needs ever be satisfied, like how much am I going to want to go for and when am I going to have to stop. And that's one thing that I think like is echoed throughout the entire album of this. I feel like this is one of the best examples for rappers who are like starting to show like other sides like of their character outside of bravado. And I feel like this is a trend that I absolutely love for rap. I think that allowing the artist to show like, yeah, no, like all this fame and money is great. However, there's a downside to it as well. Like there are things that they do have to deal with that are like kind of unique to them. And I feel like listening to that and the way that especially Tyler the Creator writes is such an amazing eye opener. And it keeps it kept me alert as I was listening through the entire time. Like this was one of the few albums where I listened to all the lyrics first instead of the amazing beats that were produced for this album. Everything from Pothole to Pothole, people will argue isn't that great, but I personally love it. 911 and Mr. Lonely are absolutely amazing. Dropping Seeds, while was a very, very short song, pretty much by Lil Wayne for Tyler, I think was absolutely wonderful. November, absolutely gorgeous track to listen to. I just cannot sing enough praises. This album is wonderful, and if it wasn't for the fact that Enjoy Right Now Today is on that, I would be giving this a perfect 8 out of 8 chicken strips.
Damn, another bold claim. But yeah, I'm like a long time fan of Tyler Oakley. Been there since Odd Future. I really like Tyler. I've always really liked his personality, but I've always felt like his albums have been missing just a little more something. And then this one came out, and I was like, "Oh, he did it!"
Oh God, he did it! Oh, well, actually, I can't say anything. This is the first album I've listened to.
It's still good though. You can talk about how good it is and how amazing I Ain't Got Time is.
I ain't got time.
I ain't got time. Okay. So I think this is it's a little lower on the tier list than Timber Butterfly, but I really love it for kind of different reasons. I really like, and kind of like what Neku mentioned, this trend in hip hop that's going on right now, where rappers aren't just fully pushing on this like bravado, this like I'm such a badass. I really enjoy when they talk about their like not to sound like in a bad way, they're like insecurities. Like it really makes them sound more. It really makes them more like personable, more relatable. And a big theme on the album is Tyler's like insecurities and like how he feels about himself. Going through like his like a little depression, like he mentioned some things about like his sexuality, and it really like it's like you can relate to a really special level with this album. The beats especially help along the way. It's like this really smooth. There's a lot of piano. There's a lot of electric piano. I'm a big sucker for that. I love the electric piano. when it like pans from left to right, I fucking love that shit.
Me too.
Same.
Yeah, there's just some really great chords, like chord progressions. Like it's really distinct, like 70s, like soul or whatever. Maybe that's not the right, but like you can feel it, and you're like, wow, I like immediately.
Yeah, I think it's a great album. I really like Tyler, and I think it's easily his best to date. And I really hope the next one is like even better somehow.
I cannot wait. Especially like I can't wait for his next album, especially because like after the release of this album, he's been releasing a lot of singles, and an overwhelming majority of them are like up to that Flower Boy standard, and it's really keeping me excited for the future of Tyler the Creator, and I really cannot wait to see where he goes and where he takes his career.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I'm excited to see him do more things now that he's worked out his style a little bit more.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, shall I do it, boys?
Go for it.
Okay, this is such a love letter to this album. This album came out in 2009. It is Merryweather Post Pavilion. I think that's how you pronounce it. From Animal Collective. Animal Collective are strange, but in a really accessible. They're the kind of music that if you heard a single on the radio, you'd be like, "This is a fucking bop," and everyone would love it. But then you listen to the album and you're like, "What a strange, experimental, beautiful time I'm having." So the beautiful thing with this album is that actually, until this album, I think Animal Collective have done like over 10 albums or something just stupid like that. Before this album, they had like guitars and stuff. Like it was an actual band setup, like a normal band, and then they had like keyboards and sounds that they would like mix in together, like a lot of indie bands at the time. But what happened is when they were writing the record, their guitarist just walked, and so they were like, okay, we have a pretty big following, we need to put something out, but we can't just hire a guitarist. I believe it was pretty into the recording process for Merryweather. So they were like, let's just have no guitar. They were like, fuck it. Like, no guitars, no bass guitar, no electric guitar. We're going to use all keyboards and all sounds and just vocals and do it. And like some drums sometimes. And they fucking did it. Like, it's really experimental. They never went back to guitar and shit again. They might have on like EPs and stuff. But it's a really bizarre and beautiful sounding album. I do have to say, as much as I love Animal Collective from the honest to God bottom of my heart, I think their lyrics are a bit strange and are more for accentuating the beat and filling dead space rather than, giving you an interesting concept to think about. Some of their lyrics will be really good but just said slightly weird. So there's a lyric that's about like, what people think of you is who you are. But the lyric is, am I really all the things that are outside of me? Like that's a really strange way to put it, I think, like phrasing wise. I think if you're going to listen to Animal Collective, just listen to it with no brain and then afterwards maybe look at the lyrics if you're interested. There's a line in their album before this about babies pooping and I was like, are you serious? And then I looked it up and I was like, yep, that's what the line is, and there's no like hidden meaning. It's just about babies pooping. But apart from that, like disregarding the lyrics, if you like samples and if you like layering shit, holy fuck. Like this is the Layer band and this is the Layer album. Basically what they do is they'll start with a very simple beat and then they build on it the entire song. Or what they'll do is they'll build on it to the chorus and then the chorus will be something different and they'll continue to build into the second verse. It's a very, very distinct kind of music that Tame Impala, I think, mirrors a little bit. If you like Tame Impala, specifically Let It Happen, you'll fucking love this album. It's like if Let It Happen was an entire album, but a lot more upbeat. Not a lot of Animal Collective songs on this album are sad. I don't think any of them are, honestly. They're either interesting or really positive and like fun. Which like I found this album when I had just had to trash my other favorite band into the bin because I found out one of them was not a great person. And I had been listening to like sad shit for a long time. And then I found Animal Collective and they're so positive. And I think that's like a really beautiful change. The album artwork is honestly iconic. If you've ever seen that purple and green, like lots of dots, and it's like a what's the word? Like an optical illusion. It's like an optical illusion. It's a very famous album artwork because it's an actual like psychological image. But it like kind of fits the music because it feels like looking at it feels like what Animal Collective sounds like to me. I think if you're going to listen to this album, you should not touch iTunes or anything when you're listening to it. If you really appreciate flow from track to track, this is the album for you. Perfect, like seamless flow. You'll have no idea if it's the next song or not, which is something I personally really enjoy. Well, you'll know if it's the next song, but it's like it transitions beautifully, the entire album, and it like all of the flow makes sense to me. If you want to check out this album, I really suggest looking up My Girls, which is the single, I believe, off this album. Oh my God, if it even had a single, I don't know. My Girl is really fun, and it's kind of like two songs in one because halfway through it transitions to a completely different thing, but in the same chords. It's like a different beat, same chords, which is like an interesting concept. And it's about like this famous person not caring about material things, but they obviously do. And it's just like a funny, silly song with a really gorgeous beat. But my personal favorite song is a tie between Summertime Clothes, which is just a song about how much the band loves summer. And like you can hear people like having fun in the background, and like the beat is really upbeat and like really springy. Like Summertime Clothes is gorgeous. It's like all the sounds you would associate with a beach, and it puts me in the absolute best fucking mood. I have like over 500 listens to this on iTunes. Like I love Summertime Clothes. Then the other one I have to bring up is Bluish, which is not a song that Animal Collective tend to delve into a lot, which is more of like a ballad, kind of. I don't really know how to explain it. It's much less boppy and like, ooh, look at our experimental layering. And it's just like very minimalist, but with gorgeous vocals. And I think it's one of the few Animal Collective songs where I'm like, good lyrics, guys. Like really stunning, beautiful picture that you've painted with these lyrics. And it feels like a warm hug, Bluish. It's a really stunning love song if you'd like to listen to an experimental pop love song. I really genuinely love Animal Collective, and I think everyone should listen to Merryweather. It's the best pop album literally ever. And that is my case on Animal Collective.
Bold claim.
Bold claims. Bold claims all across the board today.
Are you ready for my boldest claim?
Oh, let's hear
Do it.
I'm giving it 10 out of 10 yellow funnels.
Oh.
What?
The boldest
I think it's perfect.
Of bold claims.
There's literally nothing wrong with it. It's beautiful.
Feels good, man.
Except it might be a bit long. Also, one of the sounds took me a little bit of a while to get used to because it's just like a trampoline bounce noise.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, oh my god, please listen to it. It's so good.
You know,
have you guys heard of Animal Collective before?
Yes.
I've heard you talk about it, but I personally haven't listened to any of their albums. But I mean, with such high praise as this, I guess I really do have to like give it a listen.
It's magical.
And running in at 54 minutes and 44 seconds. This album is definitely something that I am in. I really like upbeat, kind of pop, really positive music like that. Definitely. Like In Rainbows, definitely something to just chill to, just on a regular old day, sitting there, eat potatoes, eat something to do. And actually,
yeah, for sure.
Panda Bear, is Panda Bear like one of the like consistent like hardcore members of the group?
Yes.
Cool. I think he was featured on a Daft Punk.
He is. He does.
Yes.
Doing It Right.
Doing It Right. I love that song.
Yeah, it's great. Well, if you like the sound of his voice,
yes,
he's in a bunch of Animal Collective songs. There's basically two vocalists, and they swap out a lot, and a lot of them are on the same song. So yeah, easy. Also, Panda Bear's solo like career is just fantastic. A little bit more weird than Animal Collective, and for some reason, like one of his best songs has dog yelps in it the whole time. I don't know why, but like if you like the sound of Panda Bear's voice and like Doing It Right is like it's like the 2% skim milk version of an Animal Collective song.
That is the most interesting comparison for two albums I think I've ever heard. Also, if you do listen to Animal Collective, I reckon either get the best headphones you own and put it on because the production is just beautiful, or just completely plug it out, just lie on your floor and be like, yes, like let it take you there. It's like a journey. Well, all right. I think that, well, I'm not really good at transitions or finding a way how to end things.
Transition.
Transition.
the one thing I want to do is I think should each of us give like one album we super suggest out of the three we suggested? Maybe like give it a sentence and be like, I think you should listen to this one if you're going to take away any of the suggestions.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, Kapi, you go.
The one I definitely suggest is In Rainbows by Radiohead. Kind of like Jem said, the Animal Collective is really colorful. Splashes of color, really positive. That's also that's definitely the music that I'm into. I can definitely appreciate and enjoy more like mellow or like melancholy or like super deep and interesting stuff like Kendrick Lamar. But definitely when I'm just chilling, I'm just doing whatever. I really like to listen to some like colorful and positive. So I definitely recommend In Rainbows. It's really pretty easily accessible. It's on Spotify. Other music streaming platforms. I think on YouTube, all you'll find is a bunch of not so good covers. But hey, that's another day for another time. That's the one I'd recommend.
Would you like to just quickly explain to Kite what colorful means in like a music sense, since he's asking and we haven't really defined what colorful means in like a musical way?
I'm not sure if it's like an official, I doubt. But when I say colorful, I mean like the tone and like the atmosphere of the album. Because like for example, the opening track 15 Step, it's this really upbeat like techno beat. It's got like a high tempo, it's really upbeat. And then this really nice sounding kind of major chord like guitar riff comes on, but like the bass is a little funky. It's like going along with it. Tom York, the vocalist, he's kind of so it's more it's a little abstract, I'll admit, but it means like colorful is like positive, upbeat, and especially if you look at the album cover, it's like literally the text is like rainbows, rainbow colored, super colored. But like I guess what I mean by colorful is like positive, upbeat, really kind of like jammy, like jamming out. That's kind of what I.
Yeah, the warm fuzzies is what I'd call it.
Yeah, there's like a lot of warmth to it.
Yeah. Neku, wrap yours up.
I think the one that I'm going to be recommending for people to listen to is going to be Flower Boy by Tyler, the Creator. Because I feel like if there's any one album out of the three that I recommended that will probably like, I guess be important to listen to if you want to like stay up with hopefully future trends for rap music, then Tyler the Creator and his album Flower Boy is definitely one to listen to because it gives a good insight as to like kind of what to expect from artists like when they're talking about like the duality of being a rapper on or like issues that they might be going through or like I feel like if you want and if you think that there's going to be a good future for like that particular subgenre of rap, then Flower Boy is one that you definitely should listen to because it'll give a lot of good like I guess expectations going forward. It is a very good bar setting album.
For sure.
Awesome. So I'll wrap mine up. No surprise here, I'm going to 100% recommend Merryweather Post Pavilion by Animal Collective. It is just absolutely stunning, my favorite album ever. It's considered the best and a lot of people's favorite by an extremely high amount of people. It's mechanically and technically just incredible. The production level is off the charts. What they did with no guitars is just extraordinary. They basically invented a new genre of music. It's not a difficult listen at all. It's definitely the most accessible thing that I've recommended. It's just a literal fun time. Ignore the vague lyrics on your first couple of listens. Just like vibe with the sounds. Have a chill out time and like let Animal Collective like take you there. Like let them take you to like that warm fuzzy place.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Let's finish it off, boys, with an outro.
Transition. What would you rate this podcast out of 10? Fuck. Well,
Do you like it? Do you hate it?
Did you like it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? What's next? What's next? Tell us we're the best. I mean, what is it? Poor Production Podcast. So the Poor Production Podcast is is like a little music spinoff that we're gonna do once in a while, whenever there's some free time in the schedule. But thank y'all for stopping by. Whoever came in and listened, we definitely enjoy having y'all. We definitely enjoy doing this. If y'all have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. That's all I gotta say about that. Y'all have anything to say?
Listen to good music. Send music you love to people you love. Vibe out. Have a good time. Love life.
Definitely.
I'm gonna mesh with that. I feel like that's a pretty good message to end on. Enjoy music, rock out, and feel good, my dudes.
For sure.
Bye. We'll see you with a political one next time. I promise it will be more spicy.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a wonderful weekend.